Welcome to Podlygamists, the Sister Wives Rewatch podcast.
We sit down each week and recap an episode of TLC's longest-running reality show, following the Browns, a Mormon polygamous family originating in Lehi, Utah.
I'm Samantha Kaiser.
And I'm Haley Graff.
And this is Podlygamists,
Season 2, Episode 10.
Okay, welcome back. Wrapping up Season 2 here, kinda-ish. Okay, so this is Episode 10, Gambling with Our Future. Feels like that's like a pun on the Vegas aspect of it, maybe?
Yeah, I think it might be.
This aired on May 22nd, 2011, and the subject, or the blurb is, with the move to Vegas days away, the Browns begin to pack. A lot happens and not that much happens, I guess. It's just kind of like a lot of drama, I feel like, in this episode.
Yeah, I thought so too. And it was a longer one because normally all the episodes have been like 20 minutes, but this was double that.
We open with some dramatic music, kind of cutting back to the first episode of Kody introducing all his wives. Like they kind of do like a grainy filter over little naive Kody, oh, I just love my wives, and here's Janelle, and here's Robin, and blah blah blah. And as if it's foreboding, oh, if only that simpleton had known
what was to come.
I guess they kind of recap that Lehi has finished their investigation and has turned their findings over to the DA. And they sit down for a family meeting to finally tell the younger kids about what's going on.
And boy, was that tough.
Dramatic, yes. I mean, they're kids. They took it like little kids would who don't really get it, but have a reaction still. And I'm gonna say, I feel like overall, I was how'd you feel about Kody's approach to all this?
You know what it reminded me of? At our job, when you have an angry person on the phone and they're yelling at you and you just keep apologizing, I'm sorry, that's policy, and you can't do anything about it, but you have to just sit there and take it. And that's what it felt like.
I didn't draw that exact same analogy, but I drew the thing of this is a meeting. Kody's on the spot in front of the board, and the board is what the hell? And he's yeah, I understand how you feel. Yeah, that's tough. I know. You like being a family? I like being a family. We got to go to Vegas so we can be it was just very much felt like he was on trial with the board here to address whatever. Kody, his little kind of spiel is he's a salesman. He's kind of got a story he's got to tell to get this off the ground. He's who likes being a family? Are we a special family? He's nodding. Yeah. You think we're special? And then he goes,
I can see it on your face, McKilty. You look like you think you're special.
You're not. Yeah, McKelty, you're nodding along. I see. Yes.
I can see it in your eyes. Mm-hmm.
And then he says, we want to keep this family together. For this reason, we're moving to Vegas. And it's just, and he doesn't say it like that. He says it much more calmly and empathetically, but it just felt very much like he's got to really sell this. And we get mixed reactions.
Yes.
There's some silence. Overall, I think probably half of them said nothing and didn't really react, right?
Yeah.
There was a couple of yes, cheering. And I was curious who that was. They didn't show it, but.
Because Gabe sort of later talks. He's I'm kind of excited to go and kind of not. And so I wondered if it was maybe him or Garrison that were sort of they're at that age where it seems maybe it would be kind of adventurous or something and not really getting exactly how much of a change it's going to be. I don't know.
I was thinking too, they're on that vacation to Vegas recently as a family. So maybe they're oh, cool, vacation place. That's where we're moving to, the vacation place. Awesome. That might have been the first gut reaction.
And because when you're that age though too, nothing really seems permanent yet, everything except for thinking you're going to be in school forever seems that's permanent, but nothing, it doesn't sink in as much when something changes, okay, but then we can't go back to this, it is going to change for good. And I don't think you always understand that when you're younger.
Yeah that it's the instant gratification kind of thing of not really thinking long term. One of the kids who's very clearly upset is Peyton, who is sitting kind of near to Kody, and he says, I'm mad. He's very clearly expressing displeasure with this situation.
And you could tell that like he knew he was on camera for it because it was kind of like a little like a shy sort of like I don't want to move, but he was sort of like smiling, but then also like genuinely upset.
Yeah.
That was like trying to like have his reaction while being filmed, which is a really awkward
Mm-hmm.
situation for him to be in. So I felt bad.
Like a little embarrassed and trying to like you're like when you're I don't know in an argument in public and you're kind of like, oh
You're
okay,
trying
like
to
yeah,
everything's
ha,
fine. I'm not
funny.
mad at
That's funny.
you.
Well, you want to go take this to the car? Like, yeah.
Maybe we go talk about this in private.
um, one of the things Kody kind of keeps saying throughout this episode is that this place has been magical. We're moving so we can stay a family. You know, there's magic here. I don't know if I've like seen this magic. I guess those that if we're gonna like try to identify it, season one seemed very light, but also it was season one of a reality show. Like they're not really putting it all out there. I wouldn't think so. It's hard for us
Yeah.
to really like gauge that. And also, again, I keep saying this, but in later years, they reference the years in the Lehigh house as some of their like hardest about like as far as their relationships as adults. But probably the kids, it was great, right? But
I think for the kids it was probably awesome, but
yeah,
yeah, which is interesting. And I mean, we'll get to it, but talking about like the difference of living all together in one house versus separate, like it brings up a lot. Like I have a lot of questions then for like
hmm
the first 10-15 years of them living together that we won't really get an answer to.
yeah. I mean, it comes up later, but they've only been in that house since Mariah was 10. And then that's when I realized they've only been in that Lehigh house for like 5 years ish.
What did they do before?
They had trailers, I think.
Like next to each other?
I don't know where they came from directly before. I know at one point they were in Wyoming
Really?
in like a double wide. That might have been pre-Christine. That might have been like the early days. I think later seasons, like way later, they really list all the moves, and there's been more before this, even more
That
moves. They didn't.
makes me have so many more questions.
Mhm.
Because I really, and yeah, and I like I caught it where they were like, yeah, we've been here since Mariah was 10 or whatever. But man, I really did picture them though being there from the start kind of deal. I
I
guess
know.
not when it was just Kody and Mary, but once they started like having babies and stuff, I kind of figured they
hmm
got the place. But I guess not.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean they had a lot of kids there. I mean, there's a lot of little. There's that kind of that pack of older kids. It's only like four of them, five of them, 4 to 5, if you count Hunter,
Right.
and then there's a whole slew that come after. So that must have all been like the Lehigh house years. But the big kids must have been born. They had to have been born somewhere else. But I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Hmm.
I would like a timeline of all the previous moves as well, if
I
anyone's
would,
listening.
yeah, that would answer a lot of questions, but okay. Hmm.
Um, very cute. Baby Isabel pipes up with asking, "When are they going to move? When will we be moving?" Like a very like reasonable question. He goes, "Okay, great question." Like again, back to like the board meeting.
Sales.
Like, love that question. Great question. So to answer
Right.
that question, just um, and then he drops the bomb that they are going to be moving in 3 days, and he apologizes for being secretive. And I'm just thinking there's a better way that they could have presented that to some little kids. Like saying like, "I'm sorry, we've been kind of secretive and like sneaky or whatever." And I'm like, those words to little kids like have a big connotation, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you say we're being secretive to like little kids, I feel like that just elicits this whole like
I don't know, because I think kids do care about that. Like they don't get reasons like for dishonesty and stuff, and they're told to when they're little to be upfront about like you're told not to lie, like
mm,
so it just conflicts. It's like shades of gray that kids don't understand yet, where everything is so
exactly.
black and white.
hmm And like
So that
secretive
sucks
is
for
like a
them.
word in like a storybook or something about like a sneaky, you know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
just a word that really like I don't know. I feel like that elicits some emotions in the kids more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he says, "Okay, great question. We apologize for being secretive, but we're going to be moving in 3 days." And the response to that is, I would say, apoplectic. Like we cut to it's either Gabe or Garrison, and he's just like clawing his eyes out, just like his
Sorry, what?
like that's when things go off the rails in this conversation. It seems like.
Yeah, because I mean, normally when you're like I'm gonna be moving, or like the family is gonna move. I don't know. I guess because I didn't move as a kid, but you would think you would give kids months warning though on this to be like time to let it sink in, you know.
Mhm.
And obviously, like we know why they say like they kept it a secret, whatever. But dang, these poor kids.
Mhm. He also has to throw in that you can't tell anyone, which which that's why they had to keep it a secret, right? Because the kids could not have kept a secret for 3 days otherwise, And it's just like, how do you tell that to a pack of basically elementary school kids, like, and you can't tell anyone?
Your friends, like, what do you? I mean, so you're just gonna end school and the semester, and no one will know you're not coming back,
Just disappear. Yeah.
and you're
I
supposed to
mean,
just.
fortunately, they're on TV, so like people probably put the pieces together, but
Yeah, I mean, they can figure it out once they're gone. They can tell them, I
yeah.
guess. But like, still, I remember being a kid and having like friends. My first friend in preschool was someone named Bailey, and I remember playing with Bailey out on. It was called the wood constructure, which is basically just yeah. We said constructure, wood constructure as 4-year-olds. We were saying this, but so we were out playing on the wood constructure, and which is basically just like a big wood plaything, that we
Hmm.
had. And she told me like, I'm gonna be moving, so I'm not gonna be here in a couple weeks. And I didn't know how to react as a 4-year-old, so I just went, that's okay. And but it did make me sad, but I just didn't know how to like express it. Like this is
Hmm.
my friend I made in preschool.
Uh,
But so that sucks, like for their friends and stuff to not get any warning
yeah.
and then they just don't come back. Like
Uh, yeah. I mean, they're all in public school at this point, right? Besides Mariah, it seems.
yeah.
So yeah, I wonder what that's like. They're all kind of, I think, from what I understand, new to public school as well. Relatively new to public school. It seems like they started
Within the
out in
last
the
year, right?
yeah. So maybe they don't have. I don't know. There's just a lot of change for a lot of little kids, in a short time. And this does pivot nicely into the next kind of topic that's brought to the table. Is that what you have next?
Yeah.
Where our very angsty Maddie pipes up with asking, "What about Mariah?" Because as we know from season 1, I believe Mariah is in her private co-op Mormon polygamist school still with a very small number of kids, and she kind of fought for that to be able to stay in that school as opposed to going to public school with the rest of the kids.
They're arguing on behalf of Mariah.
Yeah, there's Aspen chimes in with, "There's nothing for her there," and one of the boys, I think it's Logan. Do you remember when she got all weird on us? Like, there's just a lot of like Maddie's just kind of, or not Maddie, Mariah is sort of, she's starting to get teary, and then eventually she does pipe up, but for a good like minute there, it's just everybody else kind of like as if the biggest crime here is that Mariah can't continue to go to her like private homeschool situation.
Yeah, and like you and I were chatting about this, and we were kind of saying it was like the kids thought bringing up this point of Mariah having this special school that like that would be a reason though that they'd have to stay, right? Like you clearly just didn't think of that. So like
Yeah.
Mariah has to stay for her school, so we'll just do a
Guess we're all
reverse on
staying.
this and forget about Vegas, right?
It's bizarre. And we talked about this too. Just like they're so convicted. Like this is obviously a humongous issue. We can't send Mariah back to public school where first of all they all go. The kids who are like fighting about how terrible the school is, like they're all attending that school. So I'm like, okay, weird, interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, it's in one hand it's sweet that they're like so defensive of Mariah and like what she preferred, but it's just clearly like it's just so like teen brain of like this is the biggest thing in the world and we forgot to consider that Mariah needs to keep going to the school, and the fact that they're saying that this other public school has nothing for her. It's like, yeah, maybe she had a bad experience at this local Lehigh school for whatever reason, but just connecting the fuzzy math of like this like logic of 15-year-olds is just kind of funny and
Yeah, I
cringy.
mean it's like yeah, I know that's hard for them to maybe get like but again, I mean you have a bad experience at one place, it doesn't mean every place will be that way. And I know it
Outside of your tiny there's
fairly
a
small. I
point.
mean, like they have a small
Yeah,
school and stuff. You know, like
yeah,
if you go to a bigger school or go to a different school, you might have a great experience. Who knows? You know, but
yeah.
it is hard to tell a kid that because they just don't have enough life experience yet
No,
to realize that.
there's nothing for them to reference for that.
Yeah.
But it was just so intense. This like backlash from like the teens.
I felt really bad for Mariah during this whole exchange because then she was like, "Don't you think I've thought of all this?" And
Hmm.
like just kind of crying and felt really sort of called out like on the spot. And she probably felt a little like embarrassed, like she can't handle public school, kind of, you know, like
That's the vibe. It was very. It was almost like negging her a little bit. Like she's not. She can't handle public school. She's not like I don't know. It's probably not about intelligence because it seems like she's a smart girl. But like
yeah, like it
she's
was like
too
a
dumb for
social
public
thing.
school or something like that. You know what I mean? Or she's too weird for. It was just like
Yeah,
some kind of like whatever the implication is. It was like okay, back down. Like
easy.
got
I
it.
mean,
Thanks
she's
guys.
right there, guys. Like
She
take it
can't
easy.
handle it. Like
God.
and yet she wants to
And
be a marine or whatever it is at some point. That's like her end goal at this point.
yeah, and well,
Join the
and so
military.
then she's making the point like, well, I should just stay behind. And I know you feel like you guys should raise me because you're my parents, but I don't feel like a child. I feel like I can stay behind.
Yeah.
And Kody does a very like Three Musketeers slogan where he's like, "Where we one go, we all go," or whatever.
Where we go one, we go all. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he actually says that a lot over the years. Like
all
I
for
think
one and one for all.
when they're getting ready to go to Arizona, they have that same kind of like slogan or whatever you want to call it. But yeah,
Hmm.
Mariah, she feels she needs to finish the school year. She said, I know you think of me as a child and you need to raise me, but I don't feel like a child. And it's like, oh, but you look so much like a child right now.
Oh,
Like
oh, sweetie. I know. I'm like,
and then
you'll
her
look
list.
back on that and realize how wrong you were, but it's okay.
Yeah, knowing how she grows up, it's like maybe this was even she might even say this was like one of the best things for her that she like when it did go to public school at some point, you know. So Mariah presents her list about why she feels she should be able to lay. And number one is the dance. It's in a couple of weeks,
How high
and
school
this is
is that?
and she says this quietly, and this is what made me really go like, you need to get to public school, girl. I can't leave the other two to do it alone. I'm like, are your classmates two other people? We need to get you into bigger school.
I don't
Sorry,
know.
Mariah.
Like, I'm sorry, and because the thing is, like, you won't always be in this closed of a community or like
Yeah.
small of a community. You will go and have a job one day. You will go probably to college, you know, all these things. So like you do need to have a little more experience socializing. I'm sorry, you just do. Like it'll benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just the dance committee was just the two people because I can't imagine what this dance of three people would be like.
Can you imagine?
If or if it's for like the whole school, but then it's like, okay, you're 15 and there's a bunch of like little kids at this. Like, woo, sounds like a good
What
time.
a fun dance that would be.
So I just had a lot of questions to follow up about the dance, I guess.
I mean, it was apparently about most important, so
Yeah, that was number one on the list, and then we didn't really get to hear the rest of the list. Um, but Kody, I really gave him a lot of credit. I thought he handled her and this situation super well and
he was pretty
empathetically.
empathetic, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, he says these are all valid things, and then he goes, "Well, to a teenager." But of course, like, yeah, they're not valid. We can all say they're not valid reasons to not move with the family.
Because
But
in the
he
long run, who gives a fuck about a dance? But
of three
in
people,
yeah, as a teenager, it's very important, and that's all they have. That's the only reference they have. They don't have a wider net to cast here, and that's okay. Like that, they haven't had the time yet to do so.
if this
So
was like prom or something, it would be something they have been looking forward to for years. You know, it really is like that really is like the long-term goal is prom or the dance or whatever it is. Um
right,
and Cody never says that's stupid, which is what I was thinking this whole time. This is stupid. He treats her as if it is like a really serious concern. You know what I mean? And I was like um
yeah, because I mean that is the thing. Like, plenty of times we can be like, "Well, this is dumb" and whatever, but like, yeah, for a parent though to not actually say that and to give you the weight that you feel the situation calls for,
Yeah.
That was a good move. So well done,
Mm-hmm.
Kody.
Totally. He does say to the camera later, it's easy to be empathetic or it's easy to understand and be empathetic towards her because I feel the same way on some level. And it's like he's like got probably a lot of little dumb things with his friends and stuff he wants to do too and stick around and he doesn't want to leave, but he's whether or not we agree that this choice was actually necessary, it feels that it is and he's trying to make the right call to help everybody just live like more peacefully and stress free.
Well, I was
Um
just thinking, like, I just watched a rerun of Friends the other day. It was just randomly on TV, and it was where Chandler and Monica are like moving to Tulsa in like one of the later
the
seasons.
last season, yeah.
Yeah, and like Joey's like, but we've got tickets to the Jets game next week, and Chandler's like, well, I'm not gonna make it, buddy, and he's like, but the Jets, like, and like and like that's what it feels like though. But no, still have a life going on here. It's
Uh-huh.
not just like why should we just stop? Like we can't just cancel our plans because you're moving, and so
Mhm.
that's it just is how it feels. Like
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also wrote down that I'm getting secondhand embarrassment from Mariah just because it's so much like waking up a memory of the way I was and like the things I thought were the biggest, most important things when I was 15 and how
mm,
stupid, just how like, yeah, I'm not a child. I know what I want and what I'm doing. Like, I should be able to stay here or whatever it is. And it's just like, oh my gosh, thank goodness that you just like keep growing from that point because it's just I'm just
yeah,
making like yes. It's hard because I totally understand in my old mind of
yeah,
where
because
she's
we've
coming
been
from,
there.
but I'm also like aware of how dumb it sounds now and all the things I said that sounded so stupid. You know what I
No,
mean?
I know.
But anyways, she did I mean she ends up having to go. They agree she's going to go, but there's always this thing of like but to come back, right? Like it's just, you
And I
know,
get that. I mean, I'd probably say the same thing. Like, okay, fine, then it's temporary. Like, as to kind of soften the blow a little bit.
sort of like the stages of grief, like the bargaining or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Um I think we transition over to Robin's house where she's kind of giving us the rundown of their moving plans. Or where do
Yeah,
you
and I mean, they're just packing everything up, and they're like, "We don't have anywhere to go. We're moving in 3 days." I'm like, "So what is the end game here? Like, you're just gonna drive to Vegas with stuff in your car and be like, what's what, Vegas?
Yeah.
Like, what is your goal here? Like, you don't have anything."
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of the whole time I'm like, okay, we're packing, we're packing, we're packing for what? Like I was just like they don't like have a end game yet. Um
It just like which is so weird. Like,
yeah. It's so
because
weird
like
and
I
like
feel like that's something you do as like a 21-year-old where you're just like, yeah, I'll figure it out. If things will work out, it'll be
yeah.
fine. Not 40 somethings with like 20 kids.
Yeah, in like 3 cars or whatever. It's like is that better? Is that better than maybe being in your home, but being concerned that maybe a police car will stop by? You know what I mean? Like, because nothing really has happened as far as this investigation. So
No
it's
one
like,
has talked to them. And there's just I can't stress it enough. They have this investigation, but no one's interviewed them. Nobody's actually come and talked to them in person for this investigation. I'm like, so how serious is this really? Are they just watching episodes of Sister Wives and being like, okay, this checks out, this seems
yeah.
weird? Like, is that all they're doing for this investigation? Like,
hmm Well, and their big thing is always there's a cop car driving by, and it's like if I sat out in my front lawn, I bet a cop car drives by like every other day or so.
this
Just
just happened to me. This just happened to me over the weekend when I went and had a girls' weekend with my sister. And we went before, so we checked out of the hotel and then went to a coffee shop drive through, got breakfast. And I got a breakfast burrito and I was driving and wanted to pull over somewhere to eat my damn breakfast burrito. So we found this like secluded spot by the lake. It was like a little like parking lot area where there was hiking trails and stuff. And so I just went and parked there. I was like, I'm gonna eat my breakfast burrito and drink my coffee. Cop car pulls up behind me and just sits there for the longest time. And I'm like, the fuck is happening? But he was like running my plates and stuff because this has happened to me in the past as well. Just thought we looked shady, I guess, eating breakfast while driving a minivan, I should point out. So it's not like the
Mhm.
sketchiest of vehicles, but I'm like, so that's just kind of par for the course. I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes when cops are bored or whatever, they just do that. So like I
Mhm.
know it's intimidating when you think they're coming after you, but you can literally just be eating a breakfast burrito by the lake and they'll still investigate what's going on.
And I mean, there's nothing saying that they actually have stopped at the house, parked outside of the house. They've just driven by. And so it's like, well, I get that like their mind is they have 100 kids they're dealing with and trying to protect, and they have a history of being persecuted. Like they have all this stuff that like just escalates their emotions. I'm sure I would feel differently if this were my
Yeah.
circumstance, but like we just have so little actual threat to like go off of. Besides,
I
I will
agree.
say that the one thing in the article from like last week or the week before about the DA saying like, "Oh, the Browns have made it very easy for us to blah blah blah." That was pretty like menacing. But
Mhm.
otherwise,
That's the
I don't
only
know.
thing really I think that would
Yeah,
cause
I
like some
agree.
alarm. But and again, maybe they look out back on it a little differently now. Like, oh, we maybe jumped the gun a little bit there or
I
something.
bet.
But so like I get it, but also settle down. Like,
Yeah, I know. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what you would do in that circumstance, but
yeah.
like, I don't know. Robin's clearly very like stressed and like overwhelmed, got a lot of things going on. And then we have Dayton kind of like pipe in like, "It's my birthday!" Like just in the corner.
Great.
She's like, "Yup," and it's Dayton's birthday.
Uh,
He's such a cute, just such a like a his
I
own.
enjoy him.
Mm-hmm. He's a real character, just a real like cartoon character.
I have like such a soft spot like for Dayton, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but because I just I don't know, he just seems so innocent all the time and I just kind of like my heart just like goes out to him.
He seems very sweet, and also he has no filter, so he's just kind of like blurting out whatever is on his mind. But it's usually so wholesome. Like he's just such a
Yeah.
ham. Yeah.
I know.
Um.
He wants like a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure he's got two like little cute sisters. I'm sure he's like gotta do the da 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 da. Like the whole like
Yeah.
me song
And
and
then
dance.
especially with a bunch more siblings too,
Yeah.
like he's got to compete even more for attention.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Um. Yeah, I wrote we're moving in 3 days, and then dot dot dot. Still unclear to where. um.
Wherever.
And then Kody shows up and starts packing and mentions that this is the fourth move in 2 years Robin. For Robin, it's the fourth move in 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, buckle up, homie. You've got a few more down the road still.
You got a little ways to go yet before you actually land for a bit.
I said that Captain Logan already has all the books packed except for his mom's cooking books because he wanted to make sure she had her cooking books. Is that where you
And
have next, or
Janelle's
am I?
just like, you know what? I don't even care if it's just cookbooks in here. Just throw any books in here at this point. Whatever. Let's just go.
And Logan's like, oh, all the other books are
I got
all
this
the
already,
other
Mom.
books are
Thanks.
packed, Mom. Thanks
Way
for your
ahead of you
concern.
there.
And then this is when I wrote down that Mariah had only been 10 when they moved into the Lehigh house. So if she has her learner's permit ish,
Yeah.
we know she's driving. She's not more than 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So that means they really have not, for the adults' time span, they have not been there for very long. You know what I mean? Like for the
Yeah.
kids, that's half their lives,
I've
essentially.
lived in an apartment longer than that, like one
Right.
single apartment longer than that.
It puts it into perspective that maybe this was really a special place to them. And they finally had the big house they could afford and build and live in together. And they outgrew that place. There were too many people in that
Yeah.
space.
Especially
But
adding Robin and the kids to the mix. So
yes. Um, let's see. I wrote down Maddie's personality. I don't know. She's just very like emo, very like got a lot of attitude, got a lot of things to say. I don't know.
yeah.
I
It,
roll.
she's I mean, if you were to write a character of a stereotypical teenager, that would be Maddie. So
Exactly. She's such a like a based off of some character she saw in a show or movie or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
really, mom? Like, I roll. We were gonna be legends in this town. Like that whole thing is
Yeah.
so contrived and like weird, but it's
Yeah.
so funny.
If Maddie ever wants to come on the pod, I'd love to hear a reaction.
Would love to talk to you, Maddie. Big fan. Big
Seriously,
fan.
she's awesome. So that would be really cool.
I mean, all of Janelle's kids are all of my favorite kids, as we've
Right.
established.
That's
But
that's your jam is Janelle's kids.
it's not even intentional. It's a real try. I keep like messaging you at work, like I love Gabe is my favorite. And current season, you would never catch me saying that. I'm like, Gabe has
Mm-hmm.
an attitude, but it's because he loves his mom so much, and he's so sweet, and I love
Yeah.
him.
See,
And
that's
then,
funny. It's very on brand though, because I gravitate towards Robin's kids,
do
and
you really?
yeah. And like, if I were gonna, because like you and I, again, with our personalities, I would be a Mary or a Robin. I feel like I'd be kind of a mix between those two. So the
Sure.
fact that I gravitate towards her kids, and we all know you're a Janelle, so you gravitate towards hers.
I can't believe you no offense to Robin's kids. I wouldn't can't believe you gravitate towards
I
Robin's
just
kids.
do. I don't know. Because I just, I think it might be my own family structure that maybe I feel some kind of kinship to them because, like, my sister and I were my dad's second family. And so I just kind of feel that as, like, I
So
identify with
you're the
them.
Saul and Ariella May, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Like,
You
I
feel.
just feel it. Like, so. And
Okay.
again, Robin's so emotional and stuff. And that is obviously how I am. So
Okay,
it's just
that's
so funny.
interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I don't. Again, no beef with Robin's kids. They're kids. Like they're all these kids are weird in their own like way. But those are the ones that I have a tough time with watching.
See it? Like, that's okay because I'm there. Like,
That's
I'm there
funny.
just loving them.
Good. I'm glad.
That's
It's
so
good to know
funny
that
that
someone's there for these.
we're just very on brand, I guess.
Apparently. Let's see. And then I think this is when it's. Oh no, we come up. This is like a lower point.
Yeah.
Mary's packing and she comes across, I think she says 26 obituaries from the paper from when her sister passed away. And she's kind of laughing, kind of crying, like, what did I think I was going to do with 26 copies of the paper? And her mom is there helping, Grandma Bonnie is there helping pack as well, who has also now since left us.
Yeah.
But she's
This
passed
world.
away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's like so like that felt very genuine the way she's like laughing and crying like she misses her sister. Her sister would have been there for her in this situation. But she's like, "What did I think? Why did I think I needed to hoard these copies of the paper with her obituary in it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's." And then they draw the connection, which was like really because she's like, "My sister would have been here to help me move, and now she is because they're using this paper, all this extra newspaper to like wrap up her
Yeah.
stuff." And I was like, I'm not a real like woo woo person like that, but that really felt like she was like,
There
I'm
with
here to
them.
help in the way that I can, which is
Yeah.
wrapping up your breakables with
Yeah.
newspaper. But it was just, yeah, that was
Yeah,
an
I felt
interesting
that.
thing.
That was a very emotional moment. It was really tough to see her missing her sister, but like it also did feel poignant, I think,
Hmm.
in how she could contribute, so to speak, to helping them
Hmm.
still. Mhm.
Yeah, it was very sweet, and it was
Yeah.
just the whole like relating to like the like laughing and crying, the whole thing of like that whole like felt just very sincere. It's finally now we find out that they are moving into a large home for 1 month, but it's not
Mona
available
came
till
through for
Tuesday.
that temporary solution. Good job, Mona.
Yeah, Mona Riki or whatever Riki.
Right?
Um, so they're moving to this big home for just a month, but it's not available till Tuesday. So now they're like, do we wait till Tuesday or do we go as planned? And half the family is kind of like, we got to go now, and half the family is like, why not wait? Well, not half. Actually, we only really get, from what I recall,
Janelle.
Janelle really wants to go,
Yep.
and Robin doesn't yet.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that was not what I would have predicted.
Kind of not for me either, because
Yeah.
Janelle was basically like wanting to go because she was pretty afraid of staying any longer. And usually that's not Janelle's reaction. Like, usually, obviously, Janelle is the more level headed one or whatever. But here she's like, no, I'm really worried that if we stay longer, it's putting us more at risk. Let's just get the hell out of here. But
Hmm.
even though it
Yeah,
didn't
she's
make sense to leave early though, because again, you didn't have a place to go. So your best case scenario then is what you're going to pull up with your U-Haul at the hotel, I guess. I mean, but then you're spending
yeah.
money again, which Janelle doesn't like spending all the money they don't
Hmm.
have. So again, it makes less sense for her too.
It's just interesting because, again, to you and I watching this, we're like, this whole move isn't super logical.
Yeah.
Like, we have the benefit of hindsight, and they are in the moment, and they have a lot of little kids. So it's. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that. I might have done the same thing. I don't know. But it's funny to see what now we would say is the logical argument of just, yeah, hang out and wait for one day versus rush out, go, even though we have nowhere to stay, we don't know what we're gonna do. And
Mhm.
that usually you think of Janelle as the like, let's stay level headed, let's make a calm decision here. And she's getting emotional. She's in the one-on-one even later, which we know that those are filmed. And
Mhm.
even just talking about it to the camera later, Janelle is getting emotional. She goes, "I just my kids." Like she's just worried about her kids. Um, which like endeared me to her even more because I love her so dearly. But it surprised me. It was not the role I would have assigned her in this situation.
Yeah, I would have expected someone else to have been pushing it rather than her. And I mean, we see Kody going and like ranting to Christine about Janelle calling her your sister wife. You know the way it's like your daughter, your
Your
son.
dad,
You know?
yeah, your dad just couldn't get out the door or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah, when you're mad at a relative and you use the it's not my husband at this moment. Like
It is very funny when he's like, your sister wife, like as if that just comes naturally to like say that.
yeah,
It's so weird that that's a relationship that you like would call out even.
right.
Like as if she had a I guess they look at it as if she married
Kind of, yeah, that
Janelle
they're
as well.
family. Like,
But it's
yeah.
just like, but not really. Like this is really your relationship, Cody, at number
Yeah, because
one,
she's like, no, that's your wife. No, it's your sister wife.
right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh the thing I picked up on that was interesting is that unless we get a vibe that we Cody saying to I think Mary, unless we get a vibe that we need to move Monday, we're gonna leave Tuesday. And Mary says, why? Because you and Robin just decided. And as much as we know that Mary and Robin have a pretty good relationship, and we get more into that later, it felt very like, ooh, this is the first one of
Mm-hmm.
these that happens where it's like the vibe that Mary or Robin and Cody are kind of co-conspiring, making a plan, and then telling everybody how it's going to go.
And I mean, we saw that in the most recent seasons and stuff where we've talked
Yes,
about COVID and the family's rules on COVID and all of that. I mean, we've seen where the rest of the family has kind of felt like Robin and Cody were making all the rules independent of everybody else and what everyone else thought or felt was safest and whatever. So I mean, it's clearly this is the start of that. Like,
yeah, totally. That's what I mean. It was like even though we know that Mary loves and respects Robin, she even is like, why? Because you just decided with Robin, like you went aside and had your time or whatever. I don't
and that
know.
would
It
that would piss me off, especially as the
yeah,
first wife, to be like, I've been married to you for 20 years and you've been married to this lady for 10 months here and
not
you're
even.
making
Yeah.
family, yeah, not even. And you're making family decisions with her without consulting the rest. Like that would piss me off. Like,
And like now that we're even like saying that, it's occurring to me like we have our like I don't know, like debates, not really debates, but like about whether or not Robin is Cody's true love and like all that stuff. Like that's kind of the in later years, that's kind of like the opinion that kind of comes up.
mm-hmm.
And this situation a little bit reinforces that because it's so early for her to already have that kind of influence, if that is the case.
Well, and think, was it last week or the week before where she was like, tell Christine why you feel this way or whatever. You know,
It's in his ear,
it was already like adding in that level of like authority or like level of being in the know.
like intimacy with Cody, even though they're all together, all
Mhm.
five of them are together. She's like
Yeah.
directing him
Yeah.
out loud. Yeah,
Yeah.
weird.
So I don't know. I mean, I
Ooh,
will see in more episodes, but
that's a juicier statement than I even gave it credit for initially, but it's
yeah.
interesting. And then the next quote I have jotted down is Janelle again saying, whether the fear is rational or not, I am worried. And that's kind of back to her talking head, I think, again, of like just letting us know how she feels. And again, endearing and shocking at the same time for her to like have that stance in this circumstance.
Right.
But Cody again, when they're all sort of debating, do we leave Monday or Tuesday, right? That's this whole segment
Hmm.
is. And I said, Cody makes a good point. There are 300 miles between us and freedom, and they can stop us anytime. Even though they leave the house, they're on the road. They're not even in Nevada for 300 miles.
Right.
Like, it's not rational, truthfully. Like, in hindsight and all that kind of stuff,
They're
for
not
them
going to
to
do
be
like
like,
a high speed chase or something. But
and if they're driving the speed limit, just cruising on the road, pull them over and that's game over. Like, you know what I mean? It could have been that it's not like once they leave the house they're just safe.
yeah.
But at the same time, I get the feeling of moving away from the problem feels better than staying in it. You
I
know,
think, yeah, when you're really anxious about something, I mean, I at least know, like, I can't just sit there and, like, sit. Like, I even, when I'm really worried or something, I'll, like, pace back and forth. Because even just, like, that little bit of movement just really,
feels
you have
better.
so much, like, extra energy running through your
Mhm.
system that, like, you just need to, like, do something, even if it's not productive per se.
For sure. I think the next thing we do is kind of celebrate Dayton's birthday, which I was happy for him that we had time to do that.
Yeah. It's a little chaotic, but, you know.
And the famous scene, I don't know if they cut to this later in later years, but it was such a core memory in my brain of
Mm-hmm.
they're finally loading up all the boxes. Do
Yep.
you know, are you in the same place as me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're loading up Peyton's boxes, sorry. And Logan is kind of policing all what's going. He's like, "What is all that? They all say Peyton. All these boxes say Peyton. They're only supposed to be packing like what they need. They're like clothes, dishes. They give a list like later on. Like all we need is dishes, clothes, and something else.
Right.
And he's like, we don't need Peyton's worthless toys. And I don't know, did that? Because I don't remember anything from the season. Honestly, I know I watched it, but
Yeah.
that scene I do remember
I
like
remember that too.
clearly. What is that? I wonder why.
Probably because you could put yourself in Peyton's shoes where it would feel really like upsetting to be like these things are super important to me, you know, and especially like at a younger age, like your toys are playmates, like, you know, I mean
Hmm.
they mean so much to you. So then for someone to be like, no, we're not taking those, and like it just feels like a rush and throwing them away. Like, you know, it would hurt. Like
Like your big brother too, calling them like just stupid, like kind of calling
yeah,
them stupid and worthless toys. Again, they might not have
yeah.
been toys. It might have been like,
Could have
I
been
don't know,
anything, just his stuff in general
his
though, you
stuff.
know.
Yeah. So I don't know. That scene, it doesn't really like fit into anything else happening, but it's a real like core memory of the show for me for some reason.
You know, and if we get a chance to ever talk to Peyton, I would want to
Hmm.
ask him this, but there are some things that stick out, like in your childhood, that you can remember exact words that people say to you and like exactly how you felt in certain moments and whatever. And I just wonder if that's one of those moments for him at all.
Yeah, core
Given that
memory.
for you and I it was, I just wonder if he felt the same in that moment, like, or
As
if
a
we just felt
viewer
it
of the
for
show,
him.
as a viewer of the show, it was a core memory for me. I
Yeah, like,
imagine it
are
was
we
for
feeling
Peyton
this
too.
on your behalf, or did you
Yeah,
feel this too?
I'd be curious.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're packing and there's like a police site. So this part was fuzzy because they use this little clip in all of the promos, trailers, coming up, all that stuff. This police siren while they're like hitching up that back door of the trailer, right? Like
Right.
banging, like get out of
Hurry,
here,
hurry,
basically.
hurry.
There's never a police car scene. We don't know if that was a real sound or if it was like in the distance an ambulance driving someone who had
Could have been
fallen or
anything.
something.
Yeah.
It was just like for how much like they really
Screen
pimped out
time
that
that got
scene.
the build up for it.
Yeah,
And there
it
was
was
no real
nothing.
payoff.
Not at all. Not at all.
um,
They really pimped
and
that
I was
scene
just
out
kind
for
of was
all
like,
it
how
could be.
many times are we gonna do this same scene though? Where, you know, like we've seen this like 6 times now. Like,
And then the clear like realization that it is a nothing scene. Like it's like they
yeah.
might have they could have like edited that alarm sound in for all we know. Like it was
Oh,
like
exactly.
so
I just felt like I'm like, you're kind of punking us here. Like you're just
a little bit.
you know. But I mean, obviously they're very paranoid is the takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing I think there's like a confessional talking head portion where all the adults are on the couch and I think it's Christine that says people have changed, the laws haven't changed.
Yeah.
She's saying like they feel like people have embraced them since the show came out, since they came public, all that stuff. They don't feel unsafe, but it's the laws that make them unsafe. If someone
Right.
decides to chase them down, they have the laws on that person's side, not on theirs at the end of the day, even though they
Right.
feel safe socially and all that kind of stuff, which I thought was an interesting way to look at it.
Which again, I mean, we can make the parallel with like gay marriage again because at in 2011, I'm sure most, honestly, probably most people were like, it's fine. Who cares if gay
Yeah.
couples want to get married, whatever. But the law still at that time was like against it. So it's similar again in that respect. But
I mean, yeah, gay marriage. Currently we're dealing with abortion laws that I think, they again and again, people have the public opinion is one way and legislation goes another way.
yeah.
It's just the same kind of thing that just makes you, it puts like a reality to like, I'm like, yeah, I can understand how you're feeling in that
Hmm.
circumstance because we're dealing with some other laws currently that are similar. Kody is giving us a kind of a rundown of how this goes. So they're packed up, they're on the road. They make it 11 or 12 miles and they get a flat tire. It's
Oh,
on Robin's vehicle.
yeah.
Then Christine gets a flat tire additionally. And so basically they're like swapping spare tires to see which one's going to work better for which vehicle for some reason. I was confused by that whole.
Well, as someone who's had many a flat tire myself, my God, I could just tell you about all my car issues. But so this was like very, very familiar. And the one where the tire like flipped off the rim or whatever, that's happened to me too. And it sucks. Like, but at the same time, I also was like, are you guys like driving over nails or something though for all of you to just
Like they took a shortcut through a construction zone and
yeah,
like just like yeah,
whoops.
it was I was thinking the same like you can just get flat tires like that, especially on an open highway.
I mean, have you not though? Again, if you're gonna drive 600 miles, wouldn't it make sense though? And again, this is coming from someone who doesn't typically do this, but wouldn't it be sense to make sense to check your oil, check your tire pressure, just basic stuff. Make sure you're good to go for that long of a distance. It's embarrassing that I'm saying this to you because I don't do that. So
Well, especially because we know that they have older vehicles that have had problems. We've had a
yeah, this
scene
is
or two
not
in the
a
past.
new issue. Like you guys have done this every time you're on the road.
Yeah, even to us as viewers, we've seen your car trouble before. This is not
I
new.
just assume every time you take off on a road trip, there's going to be an issue 5 miles down the road.
I myself am traveling from Wisconsin to Pennsylvania, and I just got my oil change and my tires rotated today. Like I'm good to go on that.
That just makes sense, but okay.
Yeah. And so basically, to summarize that whole rigmarole of trying on different tires, breaking some bolts, all these things, in 4 hours they get 20 miles, which would kill me. That kind of thing. I'm so about efficiency in travel. That would kill me.
And to have kids along for that, I'd have a mental breakdown.
16 kids
Yep.
in the
Nope.
mix.
Nope. I'd be on the side of the road pulling my hair out, crying, just losing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, they decide they should just go to a nearby hotel, which is near the tire shop as well. The next
20
morning, they're ready to.
miles from home, though.
I know.
Hotel, 20 miles from home. Was it worth it to spend the money on the hotel?
Well, they said they got. First of all, I heard some comment about 2 rooms. I'm like, you got 18 people? I always get this number wrong. In 2 rooms? What
Oh
were
my
you
god.
like? Sardines packed in on the floor, on the bed, on the tub? Like, where were you putting all these people?
That sounds miserable.
I'm sure the hotel a mile from the tire shop was nothing like fancy here,
It's probably a Super 8 or something like
right? Holiday Inn at
Motel
best, but
6.
but it gives them conviction. It's almost part of their like pilgrimage, part of their whole like hero's journey that like this is what
Yep.
happens, right? You know
Yep.
what I mean? Do you get that vibe from Kody in
We
this retelling?
overcame the difficulties. We persevered.
And Satan popped our tire 4 times, and we overcame. You know, it's like that kind of
Satan.
thing.
Satan
Well,
popped our
that's
tire.
wouldn't shock me if that was what they had said. You know what I mean? It just seemed like they they felt like,
God damn it,
well,
Satan.
he's got a calling card. It's popping tires. Um, let's see. They're ready to rock the next morning. They get 200 miles. 4 hours later, another flat tire.
I got nothing. I'm like, okay.
And again, we really milk this scene of like there's a Utah State trooper that pulls up behind them, just to make sure they're okay. Kids are off the road, standard. But
Anytime
they
anyone's
use
pulled off on the interstate, if there's a state trooper around, they will pull up, you know?
it's just it's like a safety issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they use that preview scene 150 times before they actually reveal to us that just a real nice cop just trying to make sure the kids are safely.
Swell
And
guy.
they cut to the cameras. They're like a mile from the road. They're all like standing in that open field.
Just like shooting the car up on the hill in the distance.
It's like, that's the car way out there. Like,
You're that
I see
way.
it. I almost see it from where you're standing right now.
Oh.
And the cherry on top, I feel like you should deliver this line as you were the one to like give me the heads up to Kody's hero's journey.
Yes. So Kody utters the classic line, "Vegas is my Plymouth Rock." Whew. I put LOL, LOL, LOL.
I put merch idea.
That'd be great. That's a great merch idea. Put that on a t-shirt.
No one would have a freaking clue. They'd be like, "Oh, you like to gamble?" Oh no.
Oh no, let me tell you a story.
Quite the opposite, in fact.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, they make it. They move into their rental. It's a very, very big white house with teal carpet that looks like it was the set for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh my god, it did.
It was like teal carpet, white walls, very like gold like finishings. Very
It was
80s
weird.
tacky.
It was weird. I was like,
Yeah.
it was a little creepy, some of the rooms, but it's fine.
They made
that it came furnished in that style.
It's a vacation. I mean, they always reference it as the vacation rental, as if this is like their
Is this like an
home.
Airbnb before they were a thing or something?
Essentially, right? Like Mona just like called like whatever holiday fun times Vegas and they saw what house they had available.
They're like, can you go? But I feel like that's
usually
kind
it's
of
for
like,
bachelor parties, but this one's for you.
Can you imagine? Oh, I bet they had a pool table and stuff, so
and a jacuzzi.
and a jacuzzi, so you're all set. The fridge was stocked with like Coors Light or some shit,
Yeah. Like rotten hot dog buns that are like just in there. Yeah.
Right. Like, but the ketchup's still good, guys.
And yeah, so we made it safely to Vegas.
Finally, 24 hours later.
Isn't that the way it goes with this family, though? Like, what was it when they went to Wyoming and then they took them like 24 hours to get there or something?
Wasn't it like a freaking 3-hour drive that time, too?
Yeah, that one was bad. Yeah.
I just would be like, we can't take vacations, guys, because they're going to make me more stressed than if we didn't do it. So
it's going to save us money, actually, if we just rent vehicles every time we leave the house, because these repairs are just costing us so much.
It literally would. Maybe something to consider for the future.
And that's a wrap on season 2, episode 10. Am I right?
That's all I got for it.
Cool. Well, again, for the listener, we are doing a double header recording again today, so yeah. I'm not quite prepared with I don't know, recommendations. Oh, I actually do. I lied. I recommend the new documentary on Netflix that is called Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, with a trigger warning, because they get the first like episode or so is like just kind of interesting culty type. Like if you can watch a cult doc, you can watch this. It is about the Warren Jeffs polygamist kind of following, I guess.
Yeah.
Sect of the fundamentalist Mormons. So it's kind of famously gets into child brides and some very creepy dark stuff. And it gets darker the later in this show you get. So like you might start out thinking, oh, this isn't so bad, but it takes a real turn, let me tell you. So I'm just saying it does get dark. If you were able to read Under the Banner of Heaven, it's going to be along some of the lines of what happens there. But it's very interesting, very well done. And I think we're going to probably try to do some kind of special about it. So if you want to watch Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey on Netflix in preparation for a
bonus episode,
between season and bonus episode that we're going to probably look at doing down the road here in a couple weeks. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, so I got to watch that yet because I I was gonna watch it and I didn't have a notebook to take notes, so I was like, I can't just remember all this. I'm gonna forget it.
Mhm.
So I will be watching that myself. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
It'll be. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about it with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be, yeah. Like, I really don't recommend it for everyone. Like, truly, I had a hard time watching some of
Hmm.
the parts of it, and I don't have any kind of like ties to
That would
this
cause a trigger or anything.
that
Yeah.
would cause any kind of trigger, right? But it was still for me like hard to watch. So just
Yeah.
putting that out there. It is interesting. It does deal with,
And when we talk about it too, like we've already discussed this, that we won't get super graphic or anything with discussions because we do like
yeah.
to try to keep it pretty light. So I mean, we'll discuss it, but not like in super detail or something that would be really upsetting. So
Follow us on Instagram, Podlygamists Pod. And also that's our email at gmail.com. It's podlygamistpod at gmail if you want to email us. Maybe send us like bravery to maybe message or DM Payton and see if you'd like to talk to us. And that's about it.
yeah, we could use maybe some encouragement on that front
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
because we're
Encouragement's a good word.
nervous.
He's younger than both of us and like just a kid, just like a guy. So I don't know why. He just
No,
been watching him for too long. That's the
I know. I
problem.
just don't want rejection. Okay, like
I know that'd be hard. You're right. That is what I'm afraid to get rejected by Payton.
because then what do I do? Like,
Because then, yeah, where do we go from there? I'm not
we
gonna
just
ask Maddie.
continue on
That's
with
for
our
dang sure.
podcast that we got rejected by a Brown family member.
Okay, we've dedicated months of our lives to talking about this family, and they don't want to talk to us.
That would just it
Okay.
would take the pod in a different direction, I guess. Not that I would be negative, but it would just we would be continuing
Open up.
on in a different way, I guess, without hope.
It would. It would open up some filters. I think that otherwise would be there
Perhaps.
probably. But I'm still holding out hope. I'm
Mhm.
still thinking maybe I'll get brave one of these days and do it.
We can do it. Just like a shot of whiskey real quick and then send an email.
It might take a few more than a shot to like get the boldness, but
That liquid courage, you know.
we'll see. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.